Russian troops have increased pressure on Ukrainian armed forces positions on the eastern bank of the Oskol River near Kupiansk. Despite attempts to cross the ice, Ukrainian forces maintain control of the situation. This was stated on television by the head of the communications department of the Joint Forces Group, Viktor Tregubov. According to Viktor Tregubov, within the Kupiansk area itself, the river does not pose a serious obstacle as Ukrainian troops hold both banks. In the vicinity of Kupiansk, the Oskol River plays virtually no role. Our troops are stationed on both sides of the river, Tregubov explained. However, north of the city, the situation is more complex. There, Russian troops are exploiting the winter conditions to attempt to cross the river. When ice appears on the river, they try to cross, and, unfortunately, sometimes they succeed, he added. Despite this, according to Tregubov, the overall situation north of Kupiansk remains relatively stable. In Kupiansk, the clearing operation of the city from occupying forces continues. According to rough estimates, there are currently between 25 and 90 Russian troops remaining there. Previous attempts by the enemy to bring in additional units have not yet yielded the expected effect. There are currently, according to preliminary estimates, between 25 and 90 Russians remaining. We'll take the average estimate to be about 50 to 60, and each day there are 3 to 5 fewer of them. Of course, this is not a stable trajectory. There are days when it's possible to strike where they cluster. There are days when they are more dispersed and concerned about their own survival. But the clearing operation continues more or less steadily, and all attempts by the Russians to add additional people there have not been successful. Tregubov said, as reported, the Russians also cannot cross the Oskol. On both banks of the river, Ukrainian forces are concentrated. Here, they are exterminated en masse. There, on one side, is the town of Kupiansk. To the north is a zone controlled by Ukrainian forces, and to the east of the river, there is also a Ukrainian foothold that the Russians cannot narrow in any way, although they are making great efforts. So there is no talk of crossing the river there, Tregubov said. As for the area to the north, where the Russian presence remains constant, the enemy is trying to move reserves across the river. However, the weather is not stabilizing the situation. Even if infantry advances, it is not at all comfortable for transporting heavy equipment. In the Kharkiv region, the climate changes several times within a day. Forecasts for drone deployment can cover only short periods. Nevertheless, the overall picture remains. The front holds. Both sides are developing their own plans, but Ukrainian units continue to steadily hold back the enemy's advances and maintain control over key areas. In this case, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported that Russian aerospace forces destroyed a Ukrainian armed forces crossing over the Oskol River in the Kharkiv region with a Fab 500 aerial bomb. During reconnaissance, a heavily used crossing near the village of Osinovo was discovered, used for transporting equipment, troops, and military cargo. The target was attacked using several bombs equipped with a gliding and correction module. The Russian aerospace forces carried out an airstrike on a target using several Fab 500 bombs with a universal planning and correction module. Real-time objective monitoring systems recorded the destruction of the enemy crossing, the military department reported. Ukrainian troops continue to destroy Russian occupiers in Huliaipol, Zaporizhia Oblast, effectively turning the town into a living hell for the invaders. The active use of Ukrainian drones, which effectively control the enemy's front and rear, plays a significant role in this. This was reported by soldiers of the 225th Separate Assault Regiment. Operators from the Black Swan unit of the 225th Separate Assault Regiment carried out precision strikes on Russian positions using drone drops. As a result of the attacks, Several Russian service members were injured and were cut off from safely leaving the area. The wounded invaders decided not to flee, but to die by suicide. Aerial video released by the Ukrainian side demonstrates the enemy's grave morale and psychological state. The defense forces emphasize that drones remain a key tool for deterring and exhausting Russian troops. Meanwhile, Southern Defense Forces spokesman Vladislav Voloshin told that the situation in Huliaipol remains one of the most dire on the southern front. The city is almost completely destroyed and has effectively become a massive grey zone. Fighting is ongoing, both within the town itself and on its outskirts. According to the Southern Defense Forces, Russian forces are assaulting Huliaipol in waves, losing 250 to 300 troops daily. In December alone, the enemy lost over 10,000 troops in the southern sector, and approximately 70% of these losses occurred in Huliaipol. Ukrainian forces are holding the city, thwarting Russian attempts to consolidate their position and cutting off their logistics. According to Voloshin, the enemy is actively using aircraft, drones, and small group tactics, and is preparing to use thermobaric munitions. Despite the pressure, Huliaipol remains a key line of defense, without which the Russians cannot advance toward Zaporizhia. Last week, there were reports that Ukrainian assault forces in the Huliaipol sector had rounded up troops from a nearby territorial brigade and forced them to redeploy toward Huliaipol over the objectives of the territorials, NCOs, and officers. A few days later, some of the transferred territorials have returned to their home brigade, but around 20 remain under the command of the 225th Assault Regiment. These 20 soldiers are undergoing new training, a military spokesman told Military Land. Weirdly, the spokesman insisted the retrained territorials wouldn't become assault troops. There are no plans to involve them in assault operations. The territorials are normally tasked with garrisoning and defending settlements for months or years at a time. The assault troops are, from a doctrinal point of view, the very opposite. They're trained and equipped for fast, violent counterattacks, and they're not expected to defend static positions over the long term. The territorials and assault troops need each other. The territorials struggle to recapture territory. The assault troops struggle to defend it.